Now I'd like to invite Dr. Terry Jansen, Professor for Linguistics, to tell us about his department. Terry?
Thank you, Heidi. It's a real pleasure to be here and talk about linguistics with you. I know that for a lot of people, you might not know what linguistics is at all. You might never have heard the term. You might have heard it, but not really know what it is. You might confuse it with just the study of some language or something like that. But hopefully what I'll be able to say today will tell you a little bit more about what linguists do and what we do in the linguistics department. So basically, linguistics is the study of language, not necessarily the study of some particular language, although in certain ways we do that too. But we do things like look at what language is, and perhaps even what language is not. Very important to us is how we use it, how we learn it. And then we think about, when you're using language, what does it mean to use words, for example? What does it mean to use some grammatical construction? And how is it that when you say something, somebody else understands what it is you said? Also important for us is how language varies across communities. So I like what Frank had just said a few minutes ago about when you go into different kinds of situations in your day, you might behave a little differently. Well, you probably speak a little differently too in each of those situations. And so that is something that we call linguistic variation. We like to try to learn a little bit more about why we speak differently depending on who we're talking to and where that conversation takes place, and what kinds of structural differences are there in your repertoire of language. We also are interested in how language changes over time, because every language does change over time. And sometimes you go through periods where language changes a great deal. And then we compare how languages differ in structure and use. Not everybody uses language in the same way, and not all language structures are identical. So in our department, we have these programs and degrees. We have the single advanced major, which is the 4-year degree, also the double advanced major. We have a general major, which is a 3-year degree and a minor. We don't have an honors program yet, but we hope to put that in place within the next couple of years. So once you move along through your degree, you may be able to get into our honors program as well. And then we also offer MA and PhD programs in linguistics for students who want to go on and do some more work in that area. There are lots of subfields, and I'll talk about them in 2 different ways. So first of all, it really depends on what kind of a theoretical approach you're interested in. And as first-year students, you might not really know anything about that yet, but that's something that you're going to learn about. So there are quite a few, and I'll just talk about 3 main ones. One is called generative linguistics, and it focuses on form. So sometimes we call it formal linguistics. That doesn't mean that it's kind of different from informal. It means that form is the interesting thing to look at. And so in that sense, we look at what the structure of language is, just in and of itself. But many linguists also consider themselves cognitive linguistics. And in this way, we're interested in conceptual structure and the ways that the way that we think about the world, the way that we conceptualize the world plays out actually in the structure of the language that we use. The third one is functional linguistics, which is a focus on interaction. And these linguists who work in a functional approach consider that interaction is the main way that structure in language evolves. It evolves because we use it interactively. So those are kind of 3 general theoretical areas, but then we have lots of subfields as well. We have social linguistics. So social linguistics has to do with how we communicate with each other and what those social circumstances look like that impact the language that we use. There's psycholinguistics, which has to do with the mind and the memory, our memory, no matter how good or bad, and how that interacts with language. There's computational linguistics. So this is often related to artificial intelligence on one hand, and also modeling, we do computer modeling of language systems. There are corpus studies. Corpus studies means that you gather a large amount of samples of language use. And this could be 5, 6, 7, 8 million words altogether. And once you put this together in a computerized corpus, you're able to search for things, to find trends in how people actually say things. Not what they should say, but how they actually do say things. And people who do corpus studies in linguistics consider this is one of the best ways to actually learn about what grammar is like from usage. And there's language typology, which looks at a certain structure or construction in language across many, many languages. Discourse analysis is another subfield where we look at, say, recorded conversations or narratives or something like that, and look at the structure of language within those particular kinds of events. For intro courses, we have a number. Linguistics has Ling 1200, which is Introduction to Linguistics. And this is the one course that's required for a student to go on to any other 2000 level courses and above. So it's the main one you have to get into. This is the last year that it's a SPAN course, a 6-credit course. Next year, we're moving to a 3-credit course, and then there'll be some other options that you can take as well. We also have Languages of Canada, which is a broad look at what language use is like in Canada. So we look at French and English and some history there. We look at Indigenous languages. We look at new languages of Canada and the expanding profile of languages across the country. And also sometimes we include signed languages that are used in Canada. Another course is Language and Gender, and I'm sure that you're quite aware that men typically speak different than women speak. So we want to know what that's about and look at some of that. We also have Descriptive Grammar of Modern English, which is kind of like, what is English like? And it's a very popular course. We do have lots of very interesting courses, however, at every level. And so here I've given you a list of some of them, both at the first year, second year, and third year level. So in the first year, we have something called Indigenous Languages of Manitoba, which is a survey of what languages are used in Indigenous populations in Manitoba. The next one is words. What are words and what do they do? And you'll often find that words can surprise you because sometimes they don't behave very well. So we're interested in what that might be about. Also, language in the media. How is language used in the media to impact listeners and watchers and maybe influence them? Multilingualism at the second year is an important course for us. Because many people don't just speak one language, but have more than one. And so how do those languages interact? When do you use them? Verbal art is also interesting because we use language creatively. At the 300 level, we've got some courses that explore very interesting aspects of language use. One is called the structure of ASL, American Sign Language. So in our department, we not only look at spoken languages, but we also look at signed languages. And so this is the course that introduces students to not to learn ASL, that's something else, but to try to understand linguistically how ASL is structured and then how it's used in the communities that use it. We also have a course, it's a new course for us called Language and Gesture. Everybody gestures, and we all understand that gesture somehow helps us communicate, plays into meaning, but how does it work? And what's its relationship to speech? And then another one that we're teaching this year, which I'm very excited about, is global hip hop linguistics. Certainly we can consider that hip hop has important cultural connections and identity connections. And so this course looks at this globally, right around the world, and examines how hip hop artists are using the medium and what their language use looks like in it. The last one I'll mention is that we do teach ASL, American Sign Language, just one introductory course. And it's a very popular course, and we are very excited to have that course taught within our department. There are lots of unique opportunities in the department for and outside for students who could work as research assistants with various professors. There's an active undergraduate student group, and there's a link for it there. We also have a graduate student association. And for many students who are interested in speech language pathology programs, quite often they'll get to have some experience on site in various places for that. Finally, some core skills. Basically, broad knowledge of what linguistics is about, understanding of the various parts of language production, language use, the ability to analyze language structures, and also experiencing language data in at least several languages. And I think that the last slide I have here talks about some sample jobs, but any job that has something to do with language, you're going to benefit from a linguistics degree. You could become a linguist, actually. But as I mentioned, speech language pathology, SLP. Lots of our students go on to be language instructors. Lots of our students are interested in interpreting and translating. Some as lexicographers, which are like dictionary makers, for example. People are communication specialists, librarians, pay a lot of attention to language. And also there may be language research lab assistant positions in linguistics, psychology sometimes, and other places as well. And I think that's about it.